Good morning. New Year's Eve, some of us started a conversation on New Year's Eve that we're going to continue today. And what sparked this dialogue that we had was the question, have you ever had a moment in your life where you wish you could hit a reset button and start everything all over again? Where, if there was a circumstance that wasn't quite going the way you wanted it to go or going the way it should go or the way you needed it to go, that you can just hit a button and all of a sudden everything just starts all over again. You get another opportunity to go at it. You get another opportunity for things to change, get another opportunity to prevent some things. And we started this conversation, and what we determined is that as much as we wish there was a reset button or easy way to start things over again, as much as we wish that we can just hit a button and everything starts from the beginning and we get a new opportunity at things, we realize that there are no reset buttons in certain areas of life, right? As much as we want it. And whenever there's an area of life where there is no reset button, those things that we wish we could reset eventually turn into regrets, right? Those moments in life where we say, I should have, I would have, I could have, I wish I did, those type of things. And the dangerous thing about regrets is that when we don't address our regrets, they can sometimes paralyze us from moving forward. Because what'll happen is we'll find ourselves with new opportunities to move forward, but because we're so stuck on what we couldn't change about what we were just in, we just stay in the same place. And every time we have a new conversation, those old thoughts and those old habits and those old things come up. Whenever there's a new thing that we can do, those old things come up, and we're just so focused on what happened or what we couldn't change or what we couldn't go back and do. And so as we start this conversation, the reason why it was so important for us to continue this conversation is because we all want to know what to do when we don't have a do-over in certain areas of life. What do we do when we when we find ourselves in different circumstances and situations that we can't go back and change, we can't do nothing about what has happened, but what do we do going forward? And how do we go forward? And so we're going to talk about that. Typically, I don't use pencils very often. I just don't. I'm usually like typing something or texting something, or I'm using an ink pen. But when I do go to use a pencil, I want to make sure that pencil works, right? You ever had a time in life where certain things you don't use very often, but when you do go to use it, you want to make sure that it works properly. And so if I took a pencil and I started writing something, and then eventually that pencil breaks, I have an option then. I have certain things I can do. I can sharpen the pencil, or I can go and I can get a new pencil since that old pencil broke. And so if I opt to go get a new pencil, I can start writing with that new pencil. And if I write the same way and that pencil breaks again, then at that time I will probably say, you know what? They make these pencils so cheap, right? I mean, these are some cheap pencils. And then I can say to myself, you know what? I'm just going to stop dealing with yellow pencils. That's the problem. I need to stop dealing with yellow pencils. All yellow pencils are bad. I need to write a letter to the manufacturer to stop making yellow pencils because yellow pencils. So I say I'm going to get a color pencil. Because when I write with this pencil, and this is a brand new pencil, everything's going to be okay. And then that pencil breaks too. And then I can go from pencil to pencil, and I'm writing again, and then it breaks. And then I can probably say, you know what? The problem is that I'm using wood pencils. I need to stop using wood pencils because all wood pencils are bad, and I need to write a letter to my congressman to tell him to ban all wood pencils because everyone should start using mechanical pencils, because if I get a brand new mechanical pencil, I'm not going to have the same issue if I'm writing the same way, and then that breaks. And then I can say, you know what, all right, that's because I bought a cheap mechanical pencil. If I would have bought a mechanical pencil that was a little bit more expensive, and I use a more expensive mechanical pencil, one that looks like a pen, then everything is going to be fine, and then I start writing with that, and if I start writing the same way, it breaks. And here's the thing that we begin to find, is that we can go from pencil to pencil to pencil to pencil, and from different kind and different brand and different type, but if we write the same old way with a new pencil, we're probably going to get the same results. That although we moved to something new, because we brought the wrong old along with the new, we're going to find ourselves in the same old position. And then there's some of us that just get in situations like this, and we say, you know what? I'm just not a pencil man. I'm a pen man from here on out. I'm a pen man. I'm never going to use a pencil again. And what we begin to do is we focus on the external as opposed to focusing on the internal, And then what happens is we get the same thing, same result, the same outcome. We're in the same predicament. Now, you probably won't ever do something like that with pencils. You probably can care less about pencils. And I'm sure all of you know how to write appropriately with a pencil. And you probably will never get so frustrated with a pencil and say, I need a new one, I need a new one, I need a new one. But we don't typically do this with pencils. We do this when it comes to real things in life. When it comes to the real things in life, we say, you know what? The reason why I'm in this situation is because the person I'm in a relationship with is bad. And if I just had a new spouse, everything would be fine. And so then we find ourselves going from marriage to marriage to marriage with the same outcome because we focused again on the person instead of me, on the external instead of the internal. And then we say, you know what? We get in another situation, and maybe things aren't going the way we wanted to go at work. And we say, you know what? The issue is this job. I just need to get a new job. I need to stop working at this place. I need to go into a new job. And then what we do, we find ourselves working at a new job and still experiencing the same old things because while the job changed, we didn't change. We stayed the same. And then you have a person that say, you know what? The reason I'm so broke is because I need more money. If I had more money, I wouldn't be so broke. I just need a higher income. I need a higher salary. So if I had a brand new salary, then I wouldn't be broke. And so then they get a new salary, and the time goes past, and they say, I'm so broke, right? Because while they may have got a new income, a new salary, they had the old perspective about how they handle their money. And here's the thing that we need to understand, is that when we find ourselves in situations in life where we can't go back and we can't hit a reset button, we can't start all over again, and we have to start new, that it probably won't matter. That new things probably won't matter unless you and I first change. You can get a new job. You can get a new relationship. You can enter into a new marriage. You can go to a new church. You can get a new set of friends. You can get a new car, a new house. But those things probably won't matter if things don't change about you and I. In fact, that's what I wanted to spend a few moments talking with you in this part of our conversation about today. It's the main point. It's the one thing you can write down, and it's going to come on the screen for you, is that new things probably won't matter unless you first change. New things probably won't matter unless you first change. If you remember it and you're going through something, you need to say to yourself, new things probably won't matter unless I first change. And that's what we're going to spend some time talking about. Because here's the thing, is that when it comes to, this change, we typically say things like this, well, okay, James, that makes a little sense, but what do you mean when you don't change? I mean, that's so general, that's so broad. I mean, what do we mean to change the way I look, change the way I smile? Do I need to change my eye color, change my hair color? What do I need to change my clothes? What do you mean by you change? I mean, what does that mean? I mean, that's just so broad. And then there's some of us since we don't know what about us needs to change, we just won't do nothing at all. And then there's others of us that the reason why we don't change ourselves is because we don't think that we're the problem. Right? We begin to look at it and say, well, the problem is not me, the problem is her. The problem is him. And the problem is not me, it's just those that management. They got a new management team that's with me the issue. And the problem is not me. If they just knew how to do things better, they made better decisions, then we wouldn't have an issue. And if I just had a new friendship circle, if I started going to a new place, if I got a new job, if I got a new salary, if I got a new car, I'm not the problem. They are. And it is. And those things are. In this circumstance, and we begin to believe that everything and everybody else is what needs to change and not us. And as we go through life and we go from circumstance to circumstance, we begin to see that the things that really that needs to change about us, it's not the external things. It's not like our height and our clothes and what we wear and things like that. The thing that you and I need to change is what I'm calling our filtering system. Our filtering system. That is the place inside of us where all the ideas of life and all the circumstances of life are processed through. That when an idea comes our way, we send it through our perspective, And then we make actions based on what our perspective is when an idea we're approached with, or when we encounter an idea. Or when we're entering a circumstance, we hit a rough period of life, that we filter that circumstance or that rough period of life through our attitude, right? Or our motives. And based on our attitude and motives, we begin to act. I mean, so for an example, if you go out on a date with somebody, or you and your spouse go out to a restaurant, and when you go to that restaurant, your spouse did something or your date did something that upset you, and when you get to the restaurant, your spouse or that person, that significant other may say to you, man, isn't this a nice place? Isn't the food good? But because your attitude is bad, because you're upset, right? You say, oh, I don't think it's all that nice. Ain't all that. Ain't all that. And I don't know why. I mean, I guess it's that way for you, because our attitude is bad, right? And so it doesn't matter how nice things are, because we have a bad attitude, our response that way. Or, you have a poor perspective about your job. You just think that your job is one of the worst places in the world to work. And a new person starts on that job, and that you're having a conversation with, and they say to you, you know what? This is such a nice place to work. And because your perspective is bad, you say, well, you say that now, right? And I'm glad you think so. To give it some time. You still wet behind the ears. Give it a little time, right? Because your perspective is bad. And because every idea that comes your way, every circumstance that comes your way is filtered through your thoughts and your attitudes, your motives. And here's the interesting thing that we begin to learn about our thoughts and our attitudes and motives. Is that the circumstances that we experience in life and the past experiences begin to shape our attitude. It begins to shape our perspectives. You ever pay attention to that? That's why, you be in an old relationship, and the person in the old relationship has done something to violate your trust. They've done something to hurt you. And then you get in a new relationship, and because you were so hurt in that past relationship, you have this perspective that every time a person is on the phone and they walk away from you, they must be doing something tricky. It's like, well, baby, I was trying to order you some flowers. I didn't, no. I know you don't walk away when you're ordering flowers, right? That type of thing. And it ain't got to have nothing to do with the new person. It's because you've been shaped by the old hurt and the old circumstances and the old things you've been a part of. And in life experiences begin to shape our heart and begin to shape our perspectives. And then we use that perspective and those attitudes to filter the new things that we encounter. We find ourselves bringing all the old into new. And we get to a point like this where we say, okay, something about this needs to change, but what is it? How do I change these perspectives? How do I change these thoughts? We need some insight. And I'm happy because the Bible gives us that type of insight. In Psalms chapter 139, King David, and many of you know David, David and Goliath. We all know that story. David fought lions, David took people's girls. We know how David wrote, David had a heart after God's own heart, right? We know that too. But David is in a situation when he writes this psalm where he's having some people who are saying some bad things about him. They're accusing him of things. And he gets to this point where he says, you know what? God, you know everything. You're everywhere. You're omnipresent. You're all powerful. You're omnipotent. And in Psalms 139, David says, you know what? Throughout all the world, you know me better than I know myself. You know my enemies. You know what's best. You know when the issues come up. God, in fact, I can't run from your spirit. No matter if I go ascend to the heaven, if I go to the earth, I can't run away from you. You're in a position to change things. Lord, and so although my enemies are saying all this stuff, Lord, I'm going to surrender and submit myself to you. And so when he gets down to this point, in verses 23 and 24, he gets to a point where he says, okay, God, I'm totally surrendered to you. And here's the thing I need you to do, Lord. If I'm going to surrender to you, I need you to do this. In the midst of my circumstance, he says this: search me, O God, and know my heart. Test me and know my anxious thoughts. I like verse 24. It says, point out anything in me that offends you and lead me along the path of everlasting life. He says, up front, God, I need you to search me. I need you to put me on a path that's going to lead me to everlasting life, that's going to lead me to joy in this current life. I need you to do that. But if you're going to do that, God, I need you to check out my heart. In other words, I need you to check out my attitude. I need you to check out the place that I filter my motives through. God, I need you to check out my heart. Because, God, there's something about my heart that I've realized that just isn't right. You know, David must have understood what Jeremiah 17:9 says. It says this: the human heart is the most deceitful of all things. That's strong. Out of everything, the human heart is the most deceitful of all things. And here's what he says: and it's desperately wicked. Who really knows how bad it is? You know what that means? It's that your human heart, the place where your attitude and your motives come from, it can be so bad and so wicked that you can have a bad attitude or a bad motive and not even know it. Think that, you know what, this is the right attitude to have. Think that this is the right motive to have. You can be there and not even know how far off the mark you really are. That's how wicked and evil and despicable our hearts are. And our heart is the place where all our attitudes and our motives and our emotions come from. This intangible place. And I'm not talking about the heart where a person can cut you open and do surgery. I'm talking about that part of you that you know what, when somebody does something, just kind of, I don't feel right. That place where jealousy and guilt and greed begins to bubble up, right? Where anger comes from. Where malice and all those evil things begin to come from. And here's the thing about the heart. If we don't address things at the heart level, everything else in our life goes off course. At the heart level. We learn throughout history that in a monarchy, whenever a bad king is sitting on the throne, the kingdom kind of has bad times, right? And does wicked and cruel things. And it's not because the people in the kingdom are wicked and cruel enough themselves. It's because the king that's on the throne that dictates everything that happens in the kingdom is typically wicked and cruel. And when the wrong person is sitting on the throne, wrong things happen in the kingdom. And the same is true about you and I. Our hearts is like the throne of our lives. And when the wrong things is sitting on that throne, we experience the wrong things in our lives. That's why God wants to be on the throne of you and I. That's why he wants our hearts. Because if he realized that if he can operate from that place, then the things in our life, we won't go so far off course. That our attitudes will be different. Our motives will be different. But if we carry the same attitudes into new circumstances, you know what's going to happen? The same old thing that happened in the old circumstance. It's not going to turn out the way we want it. If we take this victim attitude into a new relationship or a new job or whatever like this, or whatever it may be, then we're going to get the victim result. But God didn't create you as a victim. You're a victor because of him. That's why we got to have his heart, his attitude when it comes to things. And this applies to a lot of different things. We're upset because of what happened with one family member, and we stopped dealing with them. Now we're dealing with a new family member, and the same attitude carry over. And the same thing with jobs and money. No. And David says, God, search my heart. Point out in me where it could be flawed. He doesn't stop there, but he also goes on to say in Psalms 139, he says, test me and know my anxious thoughts. God, show me where my thoughts may be a little off course, where my mind is not quite right. Because, you know, when you're anxious about something, you have a lot of anxiety, you begin to do things that just really sometimes don't make sense because you're just in a rush. You ever did that? Been in a rush and then like lock your keys in the car and be like, oh, man, been in a rush and just, did stupid stuff. I mean, I did it, be rushing through a toll and forget to get your change and all that type of stuff, right? Because you're just anxious, He says, so show me where I'm anxious and where I'm a little antsy, like when you begin to, you're in a circumstance of life, and you say, I don't know if this is going to work out. I don't know if this is going to work out. And so you start just doing stuff and your perspective is off. You know, it's similar to what Paul says in Romans chapter 12. He's giving some information to the Christians that live in the city of Rome in the New Testament. And he's trying to help them to live the Christian life the way it should be and stop living like the world. And this is what he says in Romans chapter 12, verse 2. He says, don't copy the behavior and customs of this world. And we said, okay, that makes sense. I don't want to be just a carbon copy of the world. He says, but let God transform you into a new person. You say, I want to be a new person. I want to be changed and transformed. But here's how he says it. By changing the way you think. He says, then you will learn to know God's will for you, which is good and pleasing and perfect. By changing the way you think. It means that I can't think about money the same way. I can't think about health the same way. I can't think about relationships the same way. I can't think about hard times the same way. I need to have a new way of thinking. And not just any old way of thinking. I need to think the way a God would think when it comes to these circumstances. I want to think like you when it comes to this stuff. But if I think in that same old mindset, that same old perspective, and I get something new or I get a new opportunity, things aren't going to change. I'm approaching it the same way. My perspective is off. We need to check our filtering system, our attitude, and our perspectives. Because if our filtering system is not right, it doesn't matter how many new opportunities we get, how many new years they are, how many new marriages there are. You know how it is? First marriage didn't work out, so we say, I just need a new spouse. And so we get married again. Now we're on like marriage number 5 and still having the same issues. You know how it is? We say, I'm so broke, I'm so broke, I'm so broke. I just need more money. Need a new salary, get a new salary. And a couple of months later, I'm so broke, I'm so broke. We approach money the same way, the same perspective. When I was in college, undergrad, you know how most undergrad college students their finances are really tight. So there were certain seasons in my college life where it was just really, really tight. In my freshman year, I had a car, and like most teenagers that get cars, they get the car, but they don't have the money to keep the maintenance up on it, right? We know how it is. So I wasn't, checking the tires, checking the brakes, and all this stuff. And I used to take my car to this guy, and he would, fix my car for me for, kind of cheap. I would buy the parts, and he wouldn't, hit me over the head with a lot of money for the labor. And, the funny thing about me then is that I had money to buy the things I wanted, but when I didn't want to pay money for things, then I was all of a sudden all broke. You know how it is, right? It's like, yeah, I got the money for that, but I don't want to pay for that, so I'm broke. Oh, Lord, I need, that type of stuff. And so I went to him one day because my engine was making this funny noise, and he looked at me and he said, man, you need oil change bad and quick, right? And so I said, okay, well, I need oil change. That's fine. I mean, how much are you going to charge me to change the oil? He said, just give me $20. I'll change the oil for you, but you got to go buy the oil. So he says, go to the store and buy 5 quarts of oil. And he says, it should only run you about $3 a quart. And this is a long time ago because oil definitely doesn't cost that now. But he says, it should only run you about $3 a quart. So I'm thinking, okay, I got to give you 20. And 3 times 5, that's 15. So that's about $35, right? So I'm thinking, okay, all right, $35. And he said, oh, yeah, you're going to need one more thing. You need to go to the store, and you need to tell them to make them all your car, and you need to buy an oil filter. He says, because that should only run you about $5. It may cost $7, I don't know. And so I said, okay, wait a minute. 20 for you, 15 for the oil, I need another $5. And that's about $40 right there. That's before taxes, right? So I'm thinking in my head, I don't know about that, right? And so this is why I asked him. True story. I said, all right, so I'll tell you what. You said I need an oil change real bad. So how about I buy the oil, that's $15, and I pay you $10, and you just change the oil. We'll get to the filter later, right? So I tell you, don't even worry about the filter. We can get to that because you didn't say I needed an oil filter. You said I needed an oil change, right? So just change the oil. I give you the $10. We straight. And I keep my money. You do that. He says, nah, man, I can't do that. I said, yes, you can. I'll give you the money. I buy the oil. You change the oil. He says, no, I won't do that. I said, well, why not? He says, because I'll be wasting my time changing the oil if I don't change the filter. Now, at that time, I didn't know what that meant, right? So I had to pay it and get it in. But then years later, I began to find out what the importance of an oil filter is. That if I pour tons and quarts and quarts and quarts of oil into my engine, although the oil may be new, if my oil filter never changes, I'm just wasting time. Because the purpose of me changing the oil is because the oil has gotten so dirty and so clumped up and so filled with dust and sludge that it's not useful anymore. But if I change the oil and I don't change the oil filter, the same thing that happened to the old oil is going to happen to the new oil right away because it's going through the old filter. And just like you need to be sure to change the filter in your engine, you also got to change the filter in your life. Because if you send new circumstances and new things through an old filter, you're going to get the same dirty old results. We got to change the filter. You can't approach a new situation with the old perspectives and the old attitude. That's not going to work. You're just wasting time. And you'll find yourself moving from place to place and job to job and income to income and relationship to relationship, all because you haven't changed something in you. New things probably won't make a difference unless you first change. You say, okay, well, how do I change? How do I change those things inside of me? What do I need to do? I know I need to change it. Where do I start? Well, let me give you 3 things that you can do. Whenever you're getting ready to start something new or you're considering starting something new, maybe you're still in the old situation and you're saying, I think I need to make a move. Or you just started something new. Here are 3 things that I suggest that you do if you want some different results and if you want to change yourself. Here's the first thing. Ask God to expose flaws in your attitude or perspective before praying for anything else. Ask God to expose flaws in your attitude or perspective before praying for anything else. And you say, why, James, why do you say that? It's because usually when we need a new circumstance or a new situation or a new job or a new finance, new relationship, whatever it may be, or we just start one, our prayers sound something like this. Lord, please just open this door for me. Just give me this new job. Or God, just get me out of this old relationship. Lord, just open the door so I can get out of this thing. Or we start this new thing and we say, God, just please make everything in this new job work out right. And please don't let me encounter anybody that was like the people in my last job. And Lord, please don't let this man have the same problems the last man had. And Lord, please don't let this woman have the same problems the last woman had. And Lord, please don't let don't let this bank have the same problems the last bank. And we go on and on and on and on, and we ask for God to change the externals. But here's what our prayer should sound like. God, before I start this new thing, fix me first. God, show me if I had the wrong attitude in the last situation. God, show me where my perspective needs to change. Before you give me this new opportunity, change me so I don't mess up this new chance, this new lease, this second opportunity you've given. God, show me, point out at me, show me. God, give me a moment where I can look in the mirror and I can say, I need to change this. I'm thinking the wrong way. My attitude is off. God, I need to change my attitude. God, show me that first so that I'm prepared for the new. So that's the first thing you need to do. Here's the second thing. And buckle your seatbelts because I don't like this one. Pay attention to people's opinions about you. I figured y'all wasn't going to clap or do nothing on that one because, that's just... But no, that's cool. This is the reason why. Because we've been taught to do something totally different. We've been raised and taught not to pay attention to people's opinions about you. Isn't that what you tell your kids? Oh, don't listen to them, baby. Sticks and stones can break your bones, but words will never hurt you. Baby, don't listen to them. They say you mean. You're not mean. Baby, they say you stingy. You're not stingy. Kid walking around, yeah, that's why I say it's my toy, right? Type of thing. And we've been trained and taught to not listen to people's opinions. People's opinions don't matter, and I shouldn't pay attention to what people say. And it's all about me, and forget them, and tell them to read between the lines, and all that other stuff, right? You know how we do. I probably shouldn't have said that, but it's cool. And, so that's what we tell them. We tell people, you know what? I don't care about your opinion. I don't need to listen to you. Now, here's the thing. That all may be good and well and fine and true if you were perfect. But since you're not, we better pay attention. Now, I'm not saying you got to listen to everything everyone tells you. I'm not saying that you got to believe everything that everyone tells you. I'm just saying pay attention to it because it'll make you aware that you might have the capacity to act that way. I'm just saying pay attention to it. So that if everybody at the old job says that whenever you raise your voice, you sound like you're being real condescending, you just pay attention to it so that when you start raising your voice again, you say, wait a minute. This sounds familiar. They said last time this was perceived as being condescending. Maybe I need to change it just a little bit. I'm just aware now. You know, in the last relationship, they said that every time you ask questions like that, it came across as if you were insecure. So now in this new relationship, when you start asking questions, you say, wait a minute, hold up. I'm aware that somebody thought that this was being insecure last time, so I just need to pay attention to this, lest I start doing the same thing all over again. You make yourself, you become more aware. You know, I shared with you all before that I hurt my ankle playing basketball earlier in the early part of last year, and it was my ankle on the same leg that I have a bad knee. I have 4 surgeries on this knee, and it still gives me problems, right? And sometimes, every now and then, I'll start limping because of my bad right leg. Now, I'm not telling myself, you need to limp now, you need to limp, you need to limp, right? I don't wake up in the morning and say, it's time to limp, you know? And people say, oh, man, maybe that's just his swagger. No, I'm just hurt, right? You know? And so, but here's the thing, right? Because I'm aware of the issue I have in my right leg, I naturally compensate with my left. It's just a natural thing. I naturally go up the steps using my left leg more because I'm just aware of it. Because I'm aware. It's nothing else more than I'm just aware. And when you become aware of things, you try your hardest to avoid being that. And when you're aware that sometimes people think this way about you, you're going to make sure that you try your hardest to stay as far away from that as possible. Why is that a bad thing? I don't want to be that, so all right, I'm aware. All right, let me keep moving because y'all see we got. Here's the last thing. Number 3. Ask yourself, are my attitudes and perspectives a great reflection of God's heart? Are my attitudes and perspectives a great reflection of God's heart? Do my attitudes and my perspectives look like God? Now, some people that you may not care about that because you may not have a relationship with God and you may not want one. You may just be trying this whole church thing out. That's cool. But for those of us who really, do want to please God with our lifestyles and we do have a relationship with Him, that should matter to us. We want to make sure that our every attitude and our every perspective is a great reflection of the one that we serve, the one that died for us. When I was a kid, one of my best friends, he's still one of my best friends to this day, a guy named Jason Thomas, just put him out there, I don't know him. But anyway, when I was a kid, Jason, we would go play basketball every Sunday. We would go over his house or another friend of my house and play basketball. When we would go over his house to play basketball, when we would get there, he would be watching an old Michael Jordan documentary. It was like Come Fly With Me or something, or a Michael Jordan tape of some sort. Because he thought in his mind, if he studied Jordan when he got on the court, he would play like him. So he used to study Michael Jordan. I mean, he would be in the house watching this tape, and, the TV be on. He'd be mimicking the moves that Jordan made. He'd be running around the house, sticking his tongue out, doing stuff like that, right? And I'm serious. And he had, he wore socks when he played basketball like Jordan, wore Michael Jordan shoes and everything. He put his wristband on the middle of his forearm like Michael Jordan used to wear his wristband. He used to wear his little Pee Wee League shorts under his regular shorts because Michael Jordan wore his little old North Carolina shorts under his Chicago Bulls shorts. So he just thought that if he did everything like Michael Jordan, that he would play like him. And here's the funny thing. When we went out and played basketball, and I'm not saying that he was as good as Michael Jordan, but a lot of his mannerisms actually did look like Jordan. He would fade away and do these lights and look like Jordan. Now, he didn't put up as many points as Jordan put up and all that stuff, And maybe in the dark, in a silhouette to a blind person, he would be Michael Jordan. I don't know, right? Right? But my point is, he knew that if he wanted to be the best, at playing basketball, he had to study Jordan. He had to think like Jordan think and had the attitude like Jordan had if he was going to be good in the game. He had to watch and study how Jordan gets himself out of tight circumstances and how he goes to the hole and he finds himself in these difficult moments. He had to watch how Jordan played when he was sick and how Jordan won the championships and how Jordan passed and he shoot. He had to pay close attention to the way Michael Jordan did things because if he studied Jordan, he can play like Jordan. Here's my question. Who are you studying? Who are you paying attention to? When life gets tough, and whose perspective are you following? Whose attitudes are you trying to mimic? Who are you trying to mimic? Because at the end of the day, we need to be mimicking the one who created all life, who did it the best, who went through life without sin. We need to have his attitudes and his perspectives if we're going to do this thing the way we're supposed to. At the end of the day, we need to understand this, that new things probably won't matter unless you first change. Let's pray. God, I thank you for these moments that we've had to share. I thank you for even giving us new opportunities, new chances, new moments where we can have a fresh lease on life. And God, I pray that when it comes to these individual areas that we really want to change in our world, that you would first change us. God, show us where our heart is off and where our perspective is wrong. Show me, Lord. So that in the end, I can experience what you want me to experience in this new season, this new year, this new opportunity, whatever new it may be. Help me deal with the old first.